The longest surgery that I ever had lasted 6 hours. My doctors needed to remove a benign tumor that would not stop growing in my 8-year-old leg. Evidently, the surgery took longer than they planned because sometime during the procedure, I woke up, opened my eyes, and looked at all these wide eyes above those green scrub masks looking at me. I remember clear as day a nurse yelling out, "Oh my God, he's awake!" I don't think she was praying. Then someone quickly went to get the gas sleeping mask and they put it over my face. The moment ended and I went back asleep. I asked the doctor days later if I dreamed this scene, and he assured me that it happened and seemed just as surprised that I remembered it as did that nurse who screamed out. As a child, the incident of waking up actually brought comfort to me, but obviously not to the doctors and nurses who were startled and concerned. When have you looked into the eyes during a surprising moment and sensed someone else's reaction? When our eyes are open to new realities and we are startled. Especially in such a moment when we find ourselves not in control, caught off guard and stunned. Yet are we challenged as the faithful with the concept of miracles. In miracles, I believe God is inserting God's self into our stories, showing us that we are not alone, even if just for a moment we are not in control. As children, we're much more comfortable with those surprises than as adults. As children, we are much more willing to acknowledge our fears and surprises without someone having to explain to us the how, the what, or the why. Perhaps this is why, if we do not seek God with greater curiosity of God's activity in our life as children, then we miss his miracles. More importantly, we miss living with God by acknowledging God at work in us, God at work all around us. There's a little lyric that speaks of a new baby being taken to the beach for the first time with brand new eyes. Now, some of us might concur wanting brand new eyes, knees, backs, you name it. But referring to new eyes in regards to the proof that God is in our existence. Who else could have created the massive ocean waters? When seen for the first time, no matter what our age may be, many are speechless. To find yourself standing in the sand and simply saying, "Wow." To find yourself in a moment of life when you just are taking in what is happening around you. The process might continue over and over again with a new set of eyes that sees what has happened and the new results. After that surgery all those years ago, I remember a week later when my two best buddies drove to Duke's Children's Hospital from our home in Wilmington to see me. When they first came into the room, I was delighted to see them, but quickly realized that they were terrified to see me, laying in bed with tubes running in various places. I'd only seen adults so startled to look at sick people, but never children my age who looked at me as if I was a ghost. Finally, in the awkwardness of the visit, I asked them if they would like to go with me downstairs to the cafeteria to eat lunch. And we did. And the mood relaxed once we got our food and started talking again like we were back at our elementary school eating lunch together. It was then that they finally saw me. It was then that they finally looked at me. And then they started with all their curious questions whirling around in their head about the surgery, about what was wrong, and most of all, about the scars. Boys love scars. It was there in the comfort of breaking bread that we could share together as we ate and drank. Today, Jesus walked in to see all of his old buddies, and they too could not recognize him. He spoke of his scars, and they remained quiet and distant. And then Jesus asked them one of the most pastoral questions that can be asked in such a moment: have you anything here to eat? As the disciples watched Jesus eating, finally their eyes were opened, and they said, "Jesus, it is you." And I imagine that Jesus smiled and looked at them and said, "Yes, you knuckleheads, it is me." And the mood relaxed. Jesus relayed how he had been through quite an ordeal, but it was still him, still wholly him, not broken, not dead. In that moment with Jesus and his closest friends, they entered with him into the miracle of his resurrection. They entered into the story with him. In such moments of our lives, when nothing fits, can we become like a child seeing the ocean for the first time with brand new eyes? As the disciples' eyes came into focus of the great joy to see Jesus again, they were now part of the experience. As our gospel ends today saying, "You are witnesses of these things." A Christian scholar once said, "Food, in the end, in our own tradition, is something holy. It's not about nutrients or calories. It's about sharing. It's about honesty. It's about identity." I hope that we will take this pastoral question today from Jesus and put it into our own toolbox as we witness the wholeness of one's life coming apart and being pulled together in faith together when we realize God is there working in our lives. If we too are caring for someone who is recovering, dying, or grieving, then let us bring in food. I would not recommend broiled fish because it might stink up their house, but bring in the foods that are of their comfort, the foods that help them to find their nourishment in that moment. Food and drink does one main pastoral thing. It takes us from a very unfamiliar environment and brings in normalcy. When emotions are too much, simply ask, "Have you anything here to eat?" Often it's too overwhelming in these moments that we cannot identify with anything around us. So first, we simply put something in our bellies. Chew, swallow, and then open our eyes, our new eyes. The same importance is given to us each week at the communion rail that takes us back to Jesus' story. This story when he was made known to his disciples again in the breaking of the bread. We welcome him to be with us as we break bread. No matter where that might be, no matter what we might be experiencing, we consume the comfort of food so with brand new eyes we can see God's work at our story, bringing comfort to our fears. Amen.